So I started wrestling when I was four. My dad and my grandfather were both collegiate coaches at one point and then high school coaches. Um, and it was kind of a family thing. I wanted to be a part of wrestling because I wanted to spend time with my dad and spend time with my grandpa. So, and I love being on the mats, rolling around, jumping around, and just playing. That was a big thing for me as I wanted to just have fun. So I always spent a lot of time in the wrestling room. And as I grew older, I started to pick up different skills and just through osmosis, really, like learning and understanding. And one of the things my dad was great at was he was great at upper body throws. He was just a freak of nature in terms of strength. You can ask pretty much anybody that he's ever wrestled. I hear stories about it all the time, but one of the things that he was, he just loved doing was, attacking the wrist, attacking the upper body, whether it be lat drops or body locks or anything like that. So from a young age, my dad had already instilled those ideals into me. So being able to attack the body was something that was important growing up. And it wasn't always like headlocks, like a youth kid headlock, but a lot of it was just learning how to, you want to attack the legs, but you also want to be able to attack the upper body. So even when I was just a young kid, I had already started doing some of that, arm drags, duck unders, and body locks and things like that. And then as I started to get a little bit more serious about my wrestling, I wanted to wrestle in the spring and in the summer. And what you could do in the spring and the summer back then was mostly just freestyle and Greco. So I spent a lot of time down in Binghamton, New York, with a club called Shamrock Wrestling Club. The head coach of that was Scott Green, and he had a bunch of assistants. But it was a premier wrestling club in Southern Tier in Central New York, and we had a ton of great guys. And I was a fifth, sixth, seventh grader where I was looking up to Troy Nickerson and John Jones, Art Jones, like all of these guys who were state champions and basically were where I wanted to go. And every single one of them, we would have practice on Monday, Wednesday, and Sunday, or sorry, yeah, and one day a week was freestyle. The other day of the week it was Greco, and then the other day of the week was we wrestled live. So I had one practice a week in the spring and summer where I was just training exclusively Greco, and it made a huge impact on me, like a huge impact. I loved it. I love, the throws. I love just learning a new style and a new position, while also understanding that I was still just wrestling, and it was going to benefit my career as a folk style wrestler and as a freestyle wrestler. But at the time when I was a kid, I didn't really care. It was just skill development. So I started to pick up new skills. I started learning how to control my body, how to do a correct back arch, how to do, a proper gut wrench, and those sorts of things that have had an enormous impact on my career as a senior level athlete. But at the time, I just was learning how to wrestle in those different positions. And if I go back and watch some of my high school wrestling and some of my college wrestling, I was, always in an underhook or always in a 2-on-1. And it really helped me, especially when I was young and I was outmatched, maybe athletically, or someone who was older than me and had more skills than I did. I was able to negate a lot of that just by having a background in Greco-Roman wrestling where I could control a tie and I could dictate the pace of the match. And so I just remember thinking like, man, if I could do this in Greco, think I could do it in freestyle and I can do it in folk style. So I started spending a lot more time going to tournaments, going to schoolboy nationals, going to cadet nationals, junior nationals, and I really did think I was going to wrestle Greco for a long time. I made a junior world team, and I was like, man, this is something that I'm really great at. I want to continue down this path. And that was definitely a consideration when I was getting recruited into college was like, man, where am I going to be able to reach my goals to being an Olympian? I wanted to be an Olympian in 2012. And at the time, I was pretty much focused from 2008 until then. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try to make the team in Greco. And then I got to college and I just started wrestling folk style. And really that was being Olympian was kind of my second goal. I wanted to be a national champion for Cornell. So my freshman year, I'm like, I need to come in and just focus only on folk style. So I kind of put freestyle and Greco on the back burner. My senior year, I didn't wrestle freestyle or Greco. I just focused all of my effort into, getting great on the mat, being able to get off bottom, and then also being able to um, be a be a technician on top. So I spent a lot of time in my folk style career that one year, and because I did that and went to Cornell University, um, I kind of drifted away from Greco a little bit, and in the sense of just competing in Greco. And I look back and like, man, I don't really pinpoint a time where I stopped wrestling Greco because I was always just like wrestling in those upper body ties and, learning how to continue to move through people while not getting super extended on a leg attack, but also being able to attack the waist or attack the upper body. So, that was kind of just like my foundation. I had a great foundation with just my parents and my, taking me to wrestling practice, taking me to these tournaments, but then also having great coaches that emphasize Greco as a part of our curriculum. So I have a lot of experience just like being going through that sort of training and can honestly say that it made a huge impact on my folk style career, but even a bigger impact on my freestyle career. So I'm very thankful to have had a coach that really pushed that on me when I was young, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. And yeah, it's been tremendous in my career. So yeah, and then there was actually another time where after I graduated college, I wrestled a world champion in Madison Square Garden for a just one Greco match. So I went out to Colorado Springs and they were trying to court me into switching and transitioning to Greco. And I said, well, I'll take a match, definitely. I'll still train Greco and I'll train with all the guys in Colorado Springs if there's ever a Greco practice. I love hopping in. And so I wrestled Joe Filikayan in Madison Square Garden. He was a world champion. And I was like, man, I could do this. And at the rules at the time, I would just Greco is such a high level sport when you're at that level that like for me to just like pop in, for 2 weeks of training, I still had, I just was basically a high school Greco wrestler trying to compete against a world champion, but I happened to have a really good gut wrench and I was able to turn him one time, so that was pretty cool. And I could hand fight with him, so it made a huge difference just remembering my training from when I was young through my college career, through my freestyle career, and then being able to just like kind of jump out there and compete. Obviously all the Greco guys that we have are excellent athletes and just showcasing their skills. I think there's a lot of great people in the sport. So yeah, I think that there's a big need for coaches at the youth level and coaches at high school level to continue to implement that skill development because one, you're going to get better at skills, but two, you'll get twice as many matches. So if you go to Fargo, North Dakota, and you wrestle 9 matches like I did in freestyle, well, I'm going to get another 9 matches in Greco. So really made it worth my trip. And when I was young, I could compete like that. I could compete, 18 matches in a 5-day period, and it was no big deal. So now the sports changed a little bit, and there's a lot more freestyle events, but there's also a lot more folk style events. So I feel like we're kind of drifting away from crossover skills. So the way I view it is folk style, freestyle, and Greco, while they're all still the same sport, they are different sports. So if you wrestle freestyle and Greco in the summer, I consider you a multisport athlete because they are different sports and you have to have different skills. So when I'm a recruit, when I'm coaching and I'm recruiting, I was always looking for that multi-sport athlete, someone who could wrestle, not just focus only on folk style. That was not, I didn't want someone who was only great at folk style. If there were two guys, one wrestled Greco and had similar results to someone who didn't wrestle Greco, I was leaning more towards someone that would wrestle Greco because I knew that they were able to, rewire their brain to learn new skills. So, I think it's a really impactful, thing to do when you're young. I really do. I really think it's something that we need in the sport, and I feel like Greco-Roman has made a huge impact in my life. Yeah, wrestling's the fastest growing sport in America. Women's wrestling and just high school wrestling is growing so fast, and there's good reason for it. I mean, if you wrestle, you learn so much about yourself. You learn, how to basically stand on your own 2 feet. And while having opportunities to wrestle in all of these different events every single weekend, I think Greco-Roman has a really important place because it gets everyone out of their comfort zone. So if you're just staying in your lane and you only do, let's say you only hit a swing single, like that's all you do, but you never learn how to hit a head outside single, or you never learn how to hit a duck under, or you never learn how to do these skills, then it's going to be very limiting in the future. But if you have, a background in trying new things, like literally just trying a completely different style, it's going to have an impact on you, and it's going to cause you to take a break from what you're already, the problems you're focusing on, whether it be in freestyle or folk style, to like, okay, let me just put those on the back burner and let me go learn this new thing. So, having it readily available, like if we just kind of cast it away, then it's just going to go away. And we don't want that. We want to grow wrestling. We want to have opportunities for as many people that want to compete. And I think a big thing for us would be, I know women's wrestling is growing and getting girls Greco-Roman, I think is a huge deal. I know that overseas, it's probably not as important to them, but I think if we want to continue to grow as a sport, increasing the number of opportunities for our females is really important too. And right now they only have the opportunity to wrestle freestyle. And now even in college, like all their wrestling is freestyle. So even their skill development, whether it be top wrestling or bottom wrestling, learning how to get reversals or how to get dynamic turns or things like that, they're kind of not able to get that without wrestling. But they can, but folk style just adds a new wrinkle. So I know a lot of women in high school are now just wrestling exclusively freestyle, which I think is great if you want to be just freestyle. But I think there are benefits to wrestling multiple styles. So I think Greco is important for our youth development. I think it's important for our freestyle development. I think it's important for our folk style development. And I feel like if there's something that we can do to continue to press forward with women's wrestling, just give them more opportunities to compete. My daughter Eljo had her first tournament last weekend, and she had a really a bum for a coach. That was me, and I got the scoreboard wrong, and she lost her first match. But that's on me. So no, but it was really cool to see. See her be able to go out and compete, and she lost, but how did she react to that? And that's just a life skill. And if there was more opportunities, whether it be in folk style or freestyle or Greco, like those are fun things to do. And I think that there should be plenty of opportunities for everyone to go out and compete. I think if we want to grow Greco-Roman wrestling, we just need to grow the personalities, and that's the biggest thing that we can take away from other sports is tell the story. And there's so many stories to be told, and a lot of it kind of falls on the athlete. You have to go out and tell your own story, and we have great resources in America, and everyone has this amazing camera in their pocket 24/7 that they can use to go and tell their story. And obviously people want to learn, what is your history? What did you go through? What was your training? What are all these things that you are doing personally to be the best you can possibly be? And, they want to see people who are friendly and inviting and that sort of thing. So I think some of it falls on the athletes, but then also as a community, just like supporting one another, like obviously I want to see the Greco-Roman athletes go out and win medals. I want to see them go win the Olympic title. I want to see them go win a world championship. I want, and that's important. I think that we have the athletes that can do that, and continuing to bring more athletes into the sport is pretty cool. And I think that the difficult thing for us right now is that we have a built-in system for folk style, and because we have a built-in system through the NCAA with folk style, and we don't really have that for freestyle or Greco, the transition from folk style to freestyle is just a little bit easier than it would be for Greco. So. I think building personalities is a big deal. Having someone that you can look up to. Like I remember when I was young, looking up to Roland Gardner, thinking, man, this guy, he just beat one of the greatest ever. Like this is unbelievable. Like how fantastic is this? And then in 2007, when the Greco team won the world title as a team, it was like, wow, this is a path that I could take to continue moving on this way. So I think that. We just need to continue to get better as a country, and we need to continue to have great athletes in the sport, and make sure that we are cross-pollinating, whether it be training plans or anything else. Because I know a lot of the best freestyle guys that are coming out for the U.S. have strong roots in good training plans with their universities. So yeah, I think that the more we can get young kids wrestling Greco and seeing a path, like see yourself in somebody else, see yourself in one of your heroes, then those kids are going to want to grow up and try to be the best they can be.